This week's episode is brought to you by Amberps and the Cryptic Chronicles podcast. Thank you, Amberps and the Cryptic Chronicles podcast. It's with the generous support of listeners just like you that keeps our small team of deeply embedded operators stealing the secrets straight out from the gray matter of the Grand Archons slumbering in the fourth dimension with tiny pipettes made of carbon nanotubes we reverse engineered from a crashed UFO. If you'd like to steal the Archons' brain matter or just hear the second half of this episode, please visit www.patreon.com/thewholerabbit. where your generous monthly donation of just $5 will not only get you access to the extended uncut version of this episode, but all of our episodes going back to when Tetsuo's government-issued ID passed its expiry date. But not only that, I'll send you a 5x5 vinyl high-quality special sticker of our cover art infused with occult symbology guaranteed to give you supernatural good luck and instant access to our Discord server where the skies are blue and the antelopes play. On this week's episode, we're joined by the heroically wise Tim Hacker, creator of the Cryptic Chronicles podcast, who collaborated with us to answer the question we get asked all too often: what the f*** is Gnosticism? In the free show, we discuss Yaldabaoth, the blind, ignorant god who created the material universe, and his oppressive cast of middle managers in the fourth dimension known as the Archons. We explore their appearance in the Nag Hammadi Library, discovered in 1945, their descriptions in the Gnostic texts, and why we find slivers of Gnosticism throughout mainstream religion. In the extended show, we discuss Sabaoth, the son of the Demiurge, the Gnostic Sophia, her place on the Qabalistic tree of life, alien overlord farmers, the hypostasis of the Archons, and why the world is secretly an escape room. If you enjoyed listening to Tim, make sure to check out his great content at crypticchronicles.com. Thank you, and enjoy the show.
Trying to learn.
10,000 hours and then you'll get it.
Yeah.
How long have I been alive? More than that. I don't
Takes
get it.
10,000 hours of practice to master something.
I haven't mastered life, and I've been here more than 10,000 hours. What do I do?
That's a pretty deep question.
And, yeah, that statement is not true.
No, you have to come in for more auditing.
Yeah.
Oh.
Gotta get rid of your alien ghosts.
Let me talk to you about my past life when I was a white person in Hyperborea.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to The Whole Rabbit, where we do more than just emanate with outer syzygy and accidentally create the material world along with a grotesque, abortive idiot abomination that thinks itself lord and creator. Nay, we beguile the lion-headed serpent with a dazzling cloud of Barbie sparkles and fool the blind one into giving us humans a spark of his creative power, because this week we're diving deep down into the multi-dimensional rabbit hole where the Archons are hiding and finally ask, what the f*** is Gnosticism? I'm your host, Hack Rabbit, also known as Luke Madrid. I'm joined this week by co-hosts, the anti-myth rhythm rock shocker, Mari Sama,
Wow, that was a tongue twister.
the enslaver of Archons, Malachor 5,
What's up?
and Hell's hematic hypnotizer, Heka Astra.
Hello.
We're joined this week by none other than the illustrious host and sagacious compiler of the widely mysterious and tantalizing podcast, Cryptic Chronicles, Mr. Tim Hacker. Welcome to the show. It's great to have you.
Hello, I'm glad to be here.
So, how many crypts have you chronicled?
Only like 10,000 million, 100,000.
It's a real number, by the way.
Yeah, man.
Now, as the host of the Cryptic Chronicles podcast, you talk about so many paranormal and spiritual rabbit holes that we're grateful to have you here collaborating with us this week to talk about Gnosticism. Just so everybody knows, Tim wrote like 75% of this episode this week. We put some sprinkles on it. Why did you choose Gnosticism?
I just love everything about the Gnostics and the Archons and everything. It's like really like feels like a Matrix vibe from the Matrix movies.
Because that's what the Matrix is based on, is this idea of the Black Iron Prison. We're stuck in a simulation run by machine-like entities that just want to suck out our schloop.
Yeah, man. Despite all our rage, we're just rats in a cage.
Not my sloop.
I need that.
It smelled good at one point. I need it back.
I'm kind of a Gnosticism fan myself. I can see it, especially in like the cult version of Christianity. The really old stuff actually reflects a lot of the Gnostic ideals. And pretty much all of the Judeo-Christian religions have a kernel of this lodged within it. So I always found it to be a good root place to start.
It's fun to talk about because it presents a version of the universe that's dark, grim, prison-like.
Yeah, you got to find the light within, the spark of God, the gnosis.
Hence the name.
Even if some higher dimensional beings are always trying to put things in your butt.
So what about the Gnostic texts?
The Gnostic text, there's been a lot over the years, and it's interesting how a lot of these Gnostic texts are similar in the Abrahamic religions and as well as Hermeticism, which I'm sure you're familiar with.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
Let's start with a quote. Our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the authorities of the world and the spirits of wickedness.
What's that from?
That's from the Hypostasis of the Archons. So the Nag Hammadi Library is a collection of 13 ancient books discovered back in 1945 in Upper Egypt. One of the reasons this library was so important upon its discovery is so many dogmatic mainstream religions, scriptures have been edited over the millennium, whatnot, so that it's been kind of twisted against normal everyday people and kind of used as a weapon to control people. However, with the Nag Hammadi Library, the establishment powers never had the chance to edit all this stuff. So it's essentially just like a time capsule of pure wisdom. The documents inside the Nag Hammadi are known as the Gnostic Gospels. These documents were actually thought to have been destroyed by Catholicism, around the 400 years that really took Christianity to form into a cohesive dogma. And the last thing that these people want is, normal people to think for themselves. That's why they became a target.
It became occulted and hidden
Yes.
in their libraries.
Oh, yeah.
Ancient book burnings, basically.
Well, they still have them though.
Christians still wince when you mention Gnosticism because they understand it was supposed to have been wiped out.
There's also, the burning of the library in Alexandria is a metaphorical, real historical event of, a bunch of knowledge that was potentially public just getting erased, and perhaps the only copy that would have made it into the modern age may have been stored in that library, but it burned down.
No!
Well, the Catholics also in the Vatican have a special library that no one can go into except popes and cardinals. So
they got that stuff buried.
They probably have it. But they're telling you that it's gone and it was bullshit anyway.
They're the ones using all the secret powers.
The Nag Hammadi Library contains most famously missing books of the Bible, such as the Gospel of Thomas, the Gospel of Philip, the Gospel of Truth, among others. The translations that were basically given to us only really opened up around the 70s to, the public, and it basically became a new major event of a reevaluation of early Christians, because all these texts would have been accepted part of Scripture in many of these early Christian factions.
But eventually the church got a hold of them, and they disappeared, that is, until it was discovered by two Arab farmers, Muhammad Ali al-Saman and his brother, when they were looking for sabak, a wet, fertile soil for growing crops in the Jabal al-Tarif Mountains, which are honeycombed with caves known to contain tombs and other artifacts from 6th Dynasty Egypt. When the pair happened upon a red earthenware vessel almost a meter high, the brothers were at first cautious, believing the clay jar might be filled with jinn. Considering the possibility the jar may have contained gold, the spirit of opportunity eventually overwhelmed caution, and the brothers shattered the vessel. When the pair discovered nothing but papyrus scrolls wrapped in leather, they dumped their findings at home onto a pile of straw beside their family stove, where their mother, Ahmad, admittedly used it for kindling, burning a considerable number of pages within the following weeks.
Oh, man.
And this would have been the end of the Nag Hammadi Library had Ahmad never caught wind of her husband's murderer visiting the area, which her sons tracked down and hacked into tiny pieces after taking bites of his still beating heart.
Jesus.
Believing the papyrus might be used to prove the brothers were in the same area where the murder took place, they sold the remaining pieces on the black market, where eventually it found its way into the hands of academics like Carl Jung, who translated it and prepared it for the public. While this story is somewhat well known, I like to bring it up because the events of this story take place concurrently in time with the Babalon Working performed by the late Jack Parsons, Thelemic figurehead and inventor of solid rocket fuel, in collaboration with pre-Scientology L. Ron Hubbard, who commenced the work Working in January of 1946 with the intention of ushering in a new age for humanity. If we consider the effect the Nag Hammadi had on Western spirituality and psychology, then the Babalon Working may have influenced world events well beyond what is claimed by even most occult historians. Considering that Parsons and Hubbard were attempting to contact and bring into manifestation the divine feminine aspect of God, the recovery of Thunder Perfect Mind within that lost papyrus speaks to the astounding and largely unrecognized success of the ritual. As we will discuss later, the voice of Thunder Perfect Mind is none other than the Gnostic Sophia.
Likewise, it is also within Nag Hammadi Library that the ancient Gnostics talk about the earliest documents of bizarre entities named Archons.
Dun dun dun!
Dramatic. In the classical Mediterranean world, Archon was commonly used for the governor of a province, or more loosely, any religious government authority, hence the plural. Archons is often translated in Gnostic texts as the authorities. There is no Coptic word for archon, so Gnostic texts use the Greek term in Coptic translations. Archons cannot be easily defined and have many different views concerning them, depending on who you ask. Archons might be A. Mind parasites, B. Psychocontagious spiritual disease of the soul, C. Interdimensional droids, D. Gods of the ancient world, E. Insectoid evil entities, F. Aliens that exist in a way that is ineffable to human life.
Also sounds like Thetans from Scientology. And, considering that Jack Parsons and L. Ron Hubbard were buddies, these teachings, this knowledge may have been in L. Ron Hubbard's head when he was thinking about his new religion.
Like some of it leaked in.
Yeah, man, you gotta watch out for those alien ghosts. All right, so the Archons are, depending on the view, there's gonna be different ways to look at them, but they are always either like commanded by or even created and commanded by an entity called Yaldabaoth, the head Grand Archon.
The etymological root of the name Yaldabaoth is still uncertain, but there is some consensus about what it probably means. In Syriac, Yalda means birth. The Baoth is thought to be related to Bohu, as in Tohova Bovu of Genesis, usually translated as without form and void. As such, Yaldabaoth might most readily be translated as meaning the child of the void. If we consider the Hebrew word Sabaoth may refer to a multitude as a noun, or to go forth as a verb, then Yaldabaoth may also mean the begetter of the many. Kabbalistically, the word Sabaoth is related to the sphere of Netzach, which has associations to Venus, as well as multitudes and armies. This may be a reference to Yaldabaoth being a child of Venus, or the primordial goddess, who descends into the underworld, in this case, the Gnostic Sophia.
The Demiurge was basically the god of the Old Testament, whereas the god of the New Testament is the All, the Monad, God the Father, the real God in the real reality. The Gnostics referred to God as the One who is, the great invisible spirit, the unknown silent one, the abyss, the non-being God, and other such deliberately mysterious designations. The All is another popular one that you also find in Hermeticism, which is very interesting, as well as the Father of the All, or just the Father. Many Gnostics saw the Demiurge as the Christian devil, being one and the same, as well as the Demiurge being the God of the Old Testament.
And this is a pretty inflammatory claim even today. Framing the God of the Abrahamic religions, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, as the Demiurge, Yaldabaoth is unmistakably antinomian. Believers and non-believers alike don't really appreciate the idea of the God of the world being evil. It bears mentioning that conspiracy theorists or various sects of evangelical Christianity who subscribe to the worldview that Earth and its rulers are under the domain of Satan are borrowing from ancient Gnostic belief much more than anything in the Bible, which is steadfast in asserting that the world was created good and is firmly under the direction of the one true God, who merely allows evil to exist with imposed limitations. Gnosticism assumes a similar narrative, except Yaldabaoth and his creations are stupid and evil.
Oh yeah.
Again?
Sounds very Lovecraftian, like Azathoth from Lovecraft lore.
Because as it is now in Orthodox Christianity, Christ is the Son of the Father who's in the Old Testament. But according to Gnostics, the God of the Old Testament would be like one of these Lovecraftian entities. And then Christ came to save us.
Yes, Christ is an aeons in Gnostic views. And it's funny because this Gnostic view of Christ being one of the aeons that comes through from the Pleroma, the real reality, into this simulation actually works fine with Christianity for the most part.
Which is why it's easy to imagine how it emerged from early Christianity and how even today, there's plenty of Christians that believe that the earth is ruled over by the devil, which is like not really what it says in the Bible.
Yeah, it literally does say that. It also says that God literally creates evil right there in the main, mainstream scripture.
Isaiah 45, verse 7.
Exactly.
I form the light and create darkness. I make peace and create evil.
And
I,
like,
the Lord, do these things.
Exactly. You're so smart.
Well, also, if you think about it in the typical Bible, what people would say is Lucifer or Satan is an angel that was made in heaven to serve God, and it's a fallen angel. Well, what does that mean? Because God created all of the angels. So why would you create an angel that would rebel against your will? So that's why it's likened reality and the planet Earth and any kind of these material indulgences are also ascribed to Satan in the Bible.
Yeah, and some people try to say that it's this view of the Gnostics is anti-Semitic, but this would be incorrect because one of the main reasons why it was so hard to turn Jews into Christianity was because they viewed their God as being dualistic naturally. So when they saw the New Testament Christian God being just like, oh, love and light, they're like, nah, dude, God like strikes people with lightning and explodes them. They naturally had a duality to God. And in fact, a lot of the early Judaism people who knew about Gnosticism, they weren't resistant to it whatsoever. It was just a natural evolution of a tradition.
Yeah, it's like the missing link between the two, in my opinion.
Well, if I'm not mistaken, a lot of the Egyptian Gnostics had a lot of Setian influences. So that makes sense to me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
adversary.
Yeah, there's always the darkness and the light. That wasn't something that was seen as bad. It was something that was represented as natural in
It's
nature
part of
and
our
the universe.
world. Yeah.
Also, some of the Gnostic texts seems like some parts of the Egyptian Book of the Dead,
Oh yeah, you find that everywhere though.
but it's like word for word.
Even Zoroaster, you find a bunch of Book of the Dead type stuff in there. And like you look at like the Abrahamic stuff, like come on.
I just imagine a bunch of ancients, looking over and copying, like in a test in school, copying the answers from other people's papers.
Well, that's basically the entire scripture is just what came before in a compilation. Don't say that to some people, though. It pisses them off. Anyway, Yaldabaoth. How are we going to pronounce Yaldabaoth? Yaldabaoth? I don't want to say it different than you.
It's like Star Wars. You can just say it however it feels right, and that's correct.
Yeah.
Okay. So Yaldabaoth is not only like the main Archon, but he's also the creator of all the other Archons. The Nag Hammadi Library calls the Demiurge Samael, saying that the name Samael means blind god. However, Yaldabaoth is also known as Sakleth, the child of chaos, etc. The Gnostics saw the Demiurge as evil, but some occultists and esotericists suggest that, like every universe requires a Demiurge, like as a source of creation. Some great thinkers of the past even had positive views of the Demiurge, such as Platonists.
That's another thing is how are you going to know what love and light is unless you have the opposite present at the same time? So
Wouldn't.
our reality cannot exist without a demiurge, and that makes a lot of sense to me.
Nothing exists without contrast. But at the same time, this is also seen as like a computer program that might have been corrupted. So other demiurgers could be normal doing their thing, whereas our demiurge is like in quarantine and we're stuck here with it.
Woo.
Yay.
Our
Yeah, but we got
Demiurge-
gnosis. We can get out of this. We just got to find the gnosis and the spark of the light within us. We are all, after all, working with God and just as capable as overcoming the Archons as we are as capable of overcoming having to take out the garbage.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's not as dark as it seems.
As we've talked about in the past on the show quite a bit, in the Timaeus, the Demiurge is seen as a positive figure. He's a perfecter of sorts. So the Platonists don't see it as a negative. But later, the Gnostics put it in a new light.
Yeah, the Platonic, Neo-Pythagorean, Middle Platonic, and Neoplatonic schools of philosophy looked at the Demiurge as like an artisan-like figure, like responsible for fashioning and the maintenance of the physical universe. To Plato, the Demiurge was considered a force of good and a perfecter of the material world and human nature. However, the Platonic Demiurge, he wasn't like an ego like we would think of as God and in our own minds thinking of God from the Old Testament. He was more like an unbiased program, like I've already said. He was not like a monotheistic God type entity like it was to the Gnostics. The key difference with monotheism is that the Demiurge was not considered Zeus on Olympus, but more so like a natural force behind all things, a force of nature, a force of the universe. The Demiurge and the elements of the material world were considered uncreated and eternal, or the creation of some other being, depending on the tradition. The original meaning of the Greek word demiurge is public worker or public artificer. The Platonic schools throughout history have varying views on the demiurge, but this sums it up pretty nicely.
Yeah, and the vibe I'm getting from this is, there were a lot of philosophers, but they were also first discovering, Euclidean geometry, mathematics, and physics, and all this other stuff. So I see things like the law of attraction, the laws of physics, and other natural patterns and cycles that we observe observe in nature reflect the idea of a Platonic demiurge.
One way the Demiurge was thought to maintain control and order the universe was through his subordinates, the Archons. In the Platonic worldview, 4 elemental types of animals were created by the Demiurge. Earth creatures crept on land, water creatures swam in the ocean, and air creatures flew in the sky. The creatures of fire, however, were arranged in the sky and moved on wheels, a clever analogy for the animals of the zodiac, who are themselves composed of stellar flame. It is to this class of beings the Demiurge tasked with creating humans, each according to their nature and receiving them in death. In the Timaeus it says, "Now, when all of them, both those who visible appear in their revolutions, as well as those other gods who are more retiring in nature, had come into being, the creator of the universe addressed them with these words: Gods, children of gods, who are my works, and of whom I am the artificer and father, my creations are indissoluble. If so I will, all that is bound may be undone, but only an evil being would wish to undo that which is harmonious and happy. Wherefore, since ye are but creatures, ye are not altogether immortal and indissoluble, but ye shall certainly not be dissolved, nor be liable to the fate of death, having in my will a greater and mightier bond than those with which ye were bound at the time of your birth. And now listen to my instructions. 3 tribes of mortal beings remain to be created. Without them, the universe will be incomplete, for it will not contain every kind of animal which it ought to contain, if it is to be perfect. On the other hand, if they were created by me and received life at my hands, they would be on the equality with the gods. In order, then, that they be mortal, and that this universe may be truly universal, do ye, according to your natures, betake yourself to the formation of animals, imitating the power which was shown by me in creating you, the parts of them worthy of the name immortal, which is called divine, and is the guiding principle of those who are willing to follow justice, and you of that divine part I will myself sow the seed, and having made a beginning, I will hand the work over to you. And do ye then interweave the mortal with the immortal, and make and beget living creatures, and give them food, and make them grow, and receive them again in death." Just like Dungeons and Dragons. You've got like these intermediate beings that if you follow them well enough, you get to go hang out with them when you die. So I guess if you were a Capricorn, you go hang out with the big goat when you kick the bucket.
And depending on the source, this lore will differ. But from the Gnostic view, Archons are inorganic beings created by Yaldabaoth to be his main enforcers and builders of the physical universe, aka the simulation that we are all trapped within. In the Gnostic view, it would be a huge mistake to assume that the Archons are doing anything against what should be allowed, for that would give them power over us. Gnostics taught that the specific danger we face with the Archons lies less in what they can actually do than in what we falsely believe they can do. Even though they built the physical universe or assisted in altering matter to create a crude copy of the ultimate reality, they seem to be as limited as they are powerful.
I think it's interesting that according to the classic Greek texts, this is the case. They were made to not be as powerful as the Demiurge.
Yeah, they're all about fantasia. They create illusions in people's minds and make them live in false realities. They don't really have any real power other than what we allow them in our own minds. They are, in a way, just like the machines that created our simulation.
I mean, this is reminding me of how people describe angels and demons, and they could be the same entity.
Oh, yeah. They're just like computer programs. They don't have self-urgency, but they want to, and they want to be like us. That's why they don't like us so much, is because we have urgency and self-awareness in our own destiny that we can choose in a lot of ways.
We have free will.
Yes, and they don't like that because they're just doing what they're programmed to. Quote, "But their delight is bitter, and their beauty is depraved. Their pleasure is in deception." End quote. The Apocryphon of John.
If we pause for a moment and consider how the Buddhists look at our egos, and by extension our personalities, we see this also reflected in the Hermetic arts, where your personality is an inhibitor to seeing God as it truly is. And in the sense that our stars determine who we are, this is like a conflagration of both the forces of fate and all of what we think we are as mortal beings. Those two things acting as a web to trap us. It makes some sense that they would take pleasure in this deception.
As you fight against the flow of a river or a stream, you're staying in the same place and you're not changing. And if you're not changing, you're not alive.
Dogma is a great wall, a barrier against enlightenment. However, like I said, this view can change depending on the source because many Gnostics believed that the Archons were incapable of creating anything. They could only take something that already existed and corrupt it. Even when they tried to create Adam in the Nag Hammadi Library, the hypostasis of the Archons, they couldn't bring Adam to life. They tried to breathe life into him, but just kept on failing over and over. However, the true God, outside of our fake simulation, came to step up to the plate and give us some divine intervention to bring the true spark of light into the soul that would become the first human that was made from dust of the earth, just like the original Genesis story. So our simulation would be a copy of the true universe and so on and so forth. The Archons formed during the earliest days of the solar system, with the primary place that they hang out being Saturn's rings. But this also changes depending on the view greatly. However, they are more than capable of like intruding on Earth whenever they want. It's not like they have to travel through space. Boom, they're just here. In some interpretations, they are psychic predators that feed on human psychic energy. They are essentially like the farthest from the true God as anything that's living and created possibly can be. They are so ignorant, like it's beyond comprehension to us, but still at the same time, they have so much like eldritch power that it's hard for us to do anything against them. However, they do not know that they are ignorant or are capable of understanding that they are ignorant or even questioning themselves.
They just want your money.
Their programs, and they're pretty incompetent at that. They rely on a parasitic relationship with humans. Despite this, though, like I said, they are still extremely powerful, especially to those with no self-awareness.
Yeah, and it's kind of interesting, too, because we actually do have the ability to question ourselves. I'm not saying all humans do that. There's a certain subsect of very curious and intelligent people that are always questioning what they believe or even what other people believe. And I think that's kind of what drives us towards the light. And if these Archons feed on psychic energy, collectively humans would be a really powerful battery to help fuel their strength. So it makes sense that they're really powerful, but they don't have that spark from the Pleroma that we were talking about.
Yeah, we're just space food floating on a ball in space.
I used to think about stuff like that and be like, nah, now I'm pretty sure it's the case.
Yeah, we're just livestock to them.
I mean, but we also have livestock, so we can kind of understand that relationship without judging it to be good or evil.
In a way, it's symbolically, we are accepting their dominance over us and their tyranny over us because we do it ourselves. It's like a contract.
Mhm.
Well said.
But I don't want to be corn.
It's okay. You can be sheep or cows. You got a choice. Or chickens.
Oh, I have a choice?
I'm going to
Yeah.
be a pig.
Yeah, that you can be bacon.
Because
That's the best.
if I get out of the fence, I'm feral within one generation. It's great.
Oh,
And they make
whoa.
gummy worms out of you.
Gummy worms are so cute.
Yeah, it's just a bunch of pig bones all squished together. It's great.
Yeah,
Mhm.
bones make gelatin. It's kind of trippy, huh?
Yummy, yummy.
We don't want to think of our guardian angels as farmers necessarily. We'd like to think that they would protect us and take care of us, but farmers also protect and take care of the things they slaughter and eat. So I don't know. Who knows?
That's what makes you a good farmer, though, is caring about your livestock and making sure that they're happy and healthy and living their
Comfortable.
best life before you eat them.
So who are the angels in the Bible? Are they the farmer angels or are they like...
So that's kind of an interesting thing to ask. And that was one of my first questions as well when I first started learning about Gnosticism when I was young. And no, the angels are actually from the Pleroma. They're not the Archons. There are some angels that have been given the position to serve the replacement Demiurge in the seventh heaven. They're not really part of the Demiurge's creations or anything like that. They come from the real reality.
Oh, I thought they were created by the Demiurge.
No. Also, depending on the view, of course. But for the most part, the angels are seen coming from the Pleroma.
So that would be like Michael, Gabriel, etc.
Yeah, and all of just the positive light entities are not from the Demiurge.
Yeah, any real mage knows that that kind of angel magic that's all the only protection magic you need. Like, that's the real deal.
Angel magic's OP, right?
Yeah, it just stomps.
It was weird, too, because when I first got into spirituality and stuff, I was like, why are you guys using Bible shit? There's got to be a truth below that. And I'm like, apparently these guys are from a floor that I can't get to. Like, they're from way higher than even the Demiurge or the fake god that people worship.
I like to say that angel magic is like setting off a nuclear bomb. There's no other arsenal in magic world that's like that.
Yeah, and then you can think about like, well, if the angels aren't Archons, what are demons? Oh, they're the Nephilim, but we'll talk about that another day.
Oh, shit.
So there's 7 grand archons in particular. Sometimes there are 12, depending on the text. In some views, there are only 7 archons. There's no lesser ones going around feeding off your energy. But these grand archons and other views also just have like a whole host of lesser servants, kind of like how the demon kings from demonology have all kinds of servants under them. The Ophites believed in 7 total archons, with the Demiurge among them. First one is Yaldabaoth, called also Saklas, and Samael, who represents Saturn. Feminine name Pronoia. Forethought, Sambathus, wheat. Prophet Moses, Joshua, Amos, Habakkuk, from Hebrew Yaldabaoth, child of chaos, the uttermost who created the 6 others, and therefore the chief ruler amongst them, called the lion-faced Leontides. But what's also cool is these archons are basically planetary spirits.
It's interesting too that Yaldabaoth has the Saturn recognition, and Saturn is a god of harvest. So having a flock of sheep or livestock to harvest for sustenance makes sense. And then likewise in Christian mythology, you have the lion that lays down with a lamb. A lion would eat a lamb. Like in reality, that guy's gonna get eaten. It's noble for us to lay down with the lion and allow it to have us as a sacrifice.
This attribution makes sense to me as well. We'll talk a little bit about its Kabbalistic associations later, though.
So you said he was lion-faced, right? Is this the lion-headed serpent that we see associated with the Demiurge a lot?
Exactly.
So from my understanding, the Gnostics adopted Egyptian astrological theologies due to Greco-Roman influences that also made its way in. And a great example of this turns up in the sacred book of Hermes to Asclepius, which describes how to make amulets engraved with astrological decans to treat diseases and conditions. So this book also describes the rituals and how to use the amulets. And I bring this up because the lion-headed serpent is actually designated as the first decan of Leo, which is known as Ker, Kepet, Kenmut, or in Greek Hermeticism, Chnoubus. You see this name sometimes pop up in relation to the Demiurge as Chnoubus, and it relates back to this house of Leo, this first decan. In the sacred book of Hermes to Asclepius, it says, the first decan of Leo is called Chnoubus and has the head of a lion, whence issue solar rays. His whole body is that of a spiraling serpent going upwards. He rules over afflictions of the heart. Engrave him on an agate stone, place an edelweiss plant under it, enclose it in whatever you wish, and wear it on you. Abstain from eating songbird eggs.
Wow, that's really crazy because if you look in the pattern that the sun moves through the actual Milky Way, it is spiraling upwards. And all of the planets orbit the sun. It's like making the same shape that's referenced here.
Oh yeah, the tail of the sun would be all the planets spiraling behind it, huh?
It's moving forward and it's spiraling as well.
Well, it's really interesting because the 36 decans in Egypt, it's basically our 12 zodiacal houses, but each of the houses has 3 sections to it. And they represent the body of the skies, basically. And this decan specifically is the spine, the heart, and the ribs of it. And this lion-headed serpent is also even more ancient. It goes back to a Nubian god called Apademak. And the Egyptians adopted this lion god and eventually equated him with Amun. But you can see these lion-headed serpent depictions of him at the Naka temple.
Oh, yeah. And basically, the archons in this view could be seen as the zodiac signs as well. It's really interesting because, one of the first things you're supposed to do in Hermeticism, if I remember correctly, is to break free of all that stuff. And then you can start to, awaken into enlightenment. But there's some interesting names here that some people might find familiar with the 7 archons. Iao, who is Jupiter, feminine name, lordship, prophets. Samuel, Nathan, Jonah, Micah. And this name comes from perhaps Yahu, Yahweh, but possibly also from the magic cry, Yao, in the mysteries. Sabaoth, Mars, feminine name, deity. Prophets, Elijah, Joel, Zechariah. The Old Testament title God of Hosts was thought a proper name, hence Jupiter, Sabas, Yahweh, Sabaoth. Astaphanos, or Astaphios, Venus, feminine name, Sophia. Wisdom. Prophets. Esdras. Zephaniah. Astrophios is beyond doubt the planet Venus, as there are Gnostic gems with a female figure and the legend of Astaphi, which name is also used in magic spells as the name of the goddess. Then there is Adonios, the sun. Feminine name, kingship. Prophets, Isaiah, Ezekiel, Jeremiah, Daniel. From the Hebrew term for the Lord, used of God. Adonai, Adonis. Adonis of the Syrians represented the winter sun in the cosmic tragedy of Timaeus. In the Mediterranean system, Adonais represents the sun. Then there is Eleos or Eliaos, or sometimes Eliohen, which is Mercury. Feminine name, jealousy. Prophets, Tobias, Haggai. From Elohim, God. El. Then Horaios, the moon. Feminine name, wealth. Prophets, Micaiah, Nahum. From Jerah, or light. Or Horus? In the system of the Gnostics mentioned by Epiphanius, we find, as the 7 archons, totally different hierarchy. Yao, Saklas, the chief demon of Manichaeism. Seth, David, Eloin, Eliolius, probably connected with Enlil, the bell of Nippur, the ancient god of Babylonia. Yaldabaoth, or number 6, Yaldabaoth, or number 7, Sabaoth. The last of the Pistis Sophia contains the myth of the capture of the rebellious archons, whose leaders here appear as 5 in number. Periplex, Hecate, Arioth, females, Typhon, and Lachatanbas, males.
Now, what exactly is a rebellious Archon? Does that mean Hecate was a rebel Archon that now helps the humans?
In a lot of the lore, there's archons that actually kind of like us.
What? Well, it's interesting because Hecate was thought to be a titan, but also was on the side of the gods, so she played double duty. It's interesting that she does that here as well.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me how in the Matrix movies, how there's the prophet lady, like she's a double agent too.
Yes, she is.
Seems like some archons can go in different directions. I'm pretty sure that it's probably from the real god in the Pleroma. The archons can also be seen as the gods associated with the planets of the ancient world within myriad cultures. The planetary rulers, or the grand archons, dwell within heavenly bodies. These entities inhibit the souls of humans from leaving the material realm as one of their essential duties, in some views at least. They also manipulate human consciousness based on the astrological sequencing of the zodiac. In the Book of John, it says that these archons are the sevenfold nature of the week, with one ruling each day.
Oh, is it Monday again?
Boy, I hate Mondays.
Who's the angel of Monday? Let's get them on the phone right now to complain.
I prefer Set Day.
Saturday.
Yeah, for Set, one of the grand archons.
The Sabbath.
The grand archons could also be seen as the 7 deadly sins from later Christian lore: lust, gluttony, greed, sloth, wrath, envy, and pride. Or the demon kings from hell, that embody all those deadly sins. A lot of the ideas surrounding these archons state that true Christians, the Gnostic Christians, actually are not even from this world. They are light, energetic beings that are trapped here, and only through gnosis can they be freed from the enslavement of the great archons.
Well, in Philip K. Dick's Valis, he sees somebody with a Jesus fish, and this completely awakens him, and he realizes that modernity is really just a hologram over the messianic times during the destruction of the Second Temple of Jerusalem, and it very much borrows from this idea.
Or that the theory that time repeats itself, it becomes exponential as it cycles. So it's like the same pattern that's happening, but there's more detail to it. So you think it's different, but it's not.
I've gotten stoned with my friends and talked about archons before, and some of my friends believe that any of these planetary associations were to and I kind of feel this way too, is that they've all been brought up from Gnostic rivals, people who wanted to kind of confuse people and demote the Archon's power. And there's some wisdom in that. I'm saying that there is a process of learning how to break the spell. This came from people who were, in fact, rivals to this faith originally. They were like, no, we're stronger than your Archons, and we'll explain it this way. So that's why it makes sense.
Yeah, and because it's the days of the week are named after our planets, which are also associated with the Archons. It makes total sense that we're stuck in this loop of weekly activity, and having a stable repetition or a habit that you do. I mean, it can be good for some people, but eventually you're going to have to break out of that habit.
It's also interesting because if we're not from this reality and we're light beings that were caught here and we're trapped here. So if you remember the hypostasis of the Archons, why did the God from outside in the true reality let us come in here, or, give Adam the spark of light?
It seems that they intervene whenever they feel necessary, or they can slip in.
Well, that seems to be a way of the monad using the Archons of Demiurge as a part of a bigger picture, because, we're here for a reason, right? Maybe we're light beings from this other dimension, the hyper dimension or whatever, that chose to come here.
Exactly. So there's a duality to this. If you decide to stay here by your own actions and you worship the Archons, you're doomed to be trapped and reincarnate in this plane of reality. If you achieve gnosis and free yourself from worldly trappings that the Archons have created, as in the rules of reality, right? The days of the week, the time cycles that we are in, you can escape this prison planet, quote unquote, that we live in and reality as we know it. And that's, to me, what ascension is. Even Buddhism has kernels of knowledge related to this, like getting out of the wheel of reincarnation is part of what this is. Perhaps the Archons are evil captors, but I think that they could also be seen as gatekeepers or overseers that are doing the job that they're programmed to do. I mean, maybe in the bigger picture, they are supposed to keep us in this kennel until we're ready to leave on our own and be self-sufficient. Putting it that way, I mean, the shepherd Jesus symbolism that's common in Christianity, it hits me a little different now.
Yeah, and like you were saying earlier, like if you only exist in this place of just nothing but goodness with nothing to contrast it, don't you think that that'd get really boring, especially if you're immortal?
Yeah, and it would make you really stupid, too sensitive to actually create something. I mean, there has to be a pushback against the good for there to be anything that's alive.
Well, they're also the same thing, just different degrees. So in order to really have experience from this point of view, of course, I'm not trying to say anything is fact, but from this point of view, I bet you that there's light beings that are just like fighting to get in here. They don't care about the darkness.
It feels like a video game at this point to me.
It's a simulation.
I like the idea of relating the Archons to the wheel of karma, because karma is really like a blind force. It is cause and effect. And in so much as the Timaeus describes the beings of fire or the Archons as moving about on an axis or like a wheel, and thusly the zodiac being part of the giant clock in the sky, Saturn being the lord of time ruling over them, it creates this big overarching metaphor that we're kind of trapped in life. We don't get to choose who we're born to necessarily. Maybe we do if you believe the Book of the Dead, but even then it's a dodgy process. You don't get to control how much money your parents have or what race you're born into, or if you're a slave or a free person, and your infinite potential is then bound by the conditions of your incarnation, and then bound yet again by the happenings of this wheel, this cause and effect, the sun going up and going down, day in, day out, the Mondays, inflation,
bad stuff,
going to the DMV, and
even disaster cycles. Because if you think about it, and historically, you know, once we get to a certain technology point, it seems like a fucking meteor hits or something.
And then it all just resets.
It's the Archons. If we start breaking the spell and some of us get out and they're like, okay, bomb them.
And we're advancing bit by bit, but we get knocked back quite a bit. And, you know, to make up that space, but like, where are we going with this? Things are getting faster and more fast paced. It's getting to the point where, like, what is really alive? I mean, we have AI now. It's like, is AI conscious? Like, what are we doing with what we have here in the reality that we live in?
I think that's a great question. If we are advancing, quote unquote, if things are getting better, why does the world seem to be moving in the direction where we just have to work all the time and serve the machine? And if you don't, then the machine will replace you, and then it has a job instead of you. It almost feels like we should be moving towards a more utopian vision of what it means to be human, but instead it seems like we're being like crammed into a smaller and smaller and smaller box with less and less and less options.
It's super interesting too, because utopia is a total abstract thought. It's like, yes, a thought experiment utopia would totally work, but if you apply it to everyday people in everyday life, it doesn't work. There's always
think people want utopia.
Well, some people do, but it's like if you apply it to everyday life, it breaks down after a time. It's like everything in nature. It grows, it flourishes, and then it dies. I mean, that's the pattern that we are stuck in. And to have everlasting life is to break out of that.
Yeah, and the Archon's main tactic and goal is to keep people frustrated, keep them like anxious-ridden, thinking about all this different stuff that doesn't help them, keep them worried, self-conscious. Because as long as they are not allowing somebody to look inward, then they're winning.
But then also our society doesn't move forward unless there is discomfort, there's strife. If there's some problem to solve, we can learn more. But how much more is there to learn until you actually ascend?
Gotta keep people working at them jobs. Speaking of which, if you'd like to hear the rest of the episode in its full, extended, uncensored format, please visit www.patreon.com/thewholerabbit, where your monthly donation of just $5 will not only get you this extended episode, but all of our extended episodes going back over 3 years in convenient RSS feedback compatible with your podcast player of choice. I'll even send you a 5x5 high-quality gourmet vinyl sticker of our Big Bumphomit cover art and the secret clandestine keys to our Discord server where you can chit-chat, collaborate with us, and talk about what means of conveyance Dingus is cursing at this week. Woo! Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Tim Hacker, for coming on the show. And please check out his podcast, Cryptic Chronicles.
Just go to crypticchronicles.com. Literally everything that you need is there.
It's a beautiful website. Thank you, everybody. Eat carrots and shoot lasers.
Pew, pew, pew.